to be the protagonist here, but I understand that he's supposed to be this overprotective big brother. You've seen these in a lot of movies. You probably experienced it in real life. You have an overprotective older sibling. But when it comes to his sister, Rico acts like a total dick. And excuse me.
Welcome to the Video Store Geek Podcast, where your friendly neighborhood world film geek Albert Valentin talks about films made and released during the golden age of the VHS era.
Hello, my fellow tape heads. Welcome to the Video Store Geek Podcast, the place where we talk films that were made on release during the VHS era. And as always, I am your resident Video Store Geek, Albert Valentin. And today we're dancing in July. And we're kicking things off with the 1988 film Salsa, directed by Boaz Davidson and starring Draco Rosa, who's using his real name of Robby Rosa, Rodney Harvey, Magali Alvarado, and Angela Alvarado. Yes, they're sisters. As always, we're going to talk about the film and give you some interesting tidbits about the film and cast as well. So let's pop in those salsa tapes and start dancing. The film starts at an LA auto shop where we're introduced to Rico, a hotshot dancer who knows he's a hotshot and has a close circle of friends, including Ken, played by Rodney Harvey, and Chewy, played by Valente Rodriguez. The whole opening sequence is these guys, the other workers, dancing while working. I'm sorry to say this, but Ken is killing me with this scene because he is always humping away, whether it's a car or a platform. But of course, the manager wasn't having it and tells everyone to get back to work. Then it cuts to Rico having a solo sequence, coming out of the shower and seeing blue suede shoes. And right before it cuts to the next scene, he takes his towel off. And I personally think that this was a device to make the girl scream. Then we cut to the club where the action takes place, and it's called La Luna. Rico has a dance partner and his girlfriend Vicky. You could tell the chemistry is there between these two as art imitates life, but more on that later. Rico has a younger sister, Rita, who's only 17, and Rico doesn't want Rita out there, of course, and once he catches her at the club with her friend, he reams her out like he's her father. And this is where I get a little annoyed with Rico. I understand Rico's supposed to be the protagonist here, but I understand that he's supposed to be this overprotective big brother. You've seen these in a lot of movies. You probably experienced it in real life. You have an overprotective older sibling. But when it comes to his sister, Rico acts like a total dick. And excuse my French, but that is the truth. And to make matters worse, Rita's friend Lola starts to have a thing for Rico. So the next day, when Lola and shows up at the house, and what happens is that Rico suddenly starts dancing in his garage with Lola very intimately while we see Ken and Rita talking, and you could tell that something's going to happen between these two because they do like each other. And despite the fact that Ken is Rico's best friend, and of course Rita is Rico's little sister, you know it's bound to happen. They're going to start falling in love, and we get a big portion of that in the film. However, Lola is not the only one who has eyes for Rico. The owner of the club, the La Luna, and her name is Luna, she sees Rico as a potential partner on the dance floor. See, Luna is the self-proclaimed queen of salsa. So she sees Rico as the possible king to her queen. And the club is hosting an upcoming salsa competition where the winner will win a trip to Puerto Rico. Wepa! When Rico initially intends to have Vicky as his partner, Luna somehow tends to manipulate the situation, and this leads to Vicky getting annoyed, and eventually she decides to end things with Rico, who's clearly oblivious to the fact that Luna wants him for herself, even though he tries to defend her, saying to Vicky, saying, "Oh no, she's just showing us some moves and so." But Vicky, obviously, she ain't stupid. So she decides to end things with Rico. Meanwhile, Rita and Ken's romance intensifies. And Rico starts to discover that Rita comes home late at night and he blows a gasket. And in one scene, he goes a little too far and threatens to hit her and calling her a whore in Spanish because he believes that Lola is the one who's being the bad influence on Rita when it's clear it's obviously Ken because you get to see this. And there's even it just gets worse when Rico finds out about Rita and Ken and he ends his friendship with Ken and goes off again on Rita. So Rita decides, well, you're gonna act like an a-hole to me. I'm gonna get my revenge. So what happens is one night at the club, Rita shows up dressing provocatively and starts dancing with random guys. And when Rico sees it, once again, he starts going crazy. And it just shows what a total dick he is. Like, he's cool and all, but when it comes to his sister, he's just unbelievable. And it gets to a part where Rico tells Rita that he's embarrassing her in front of his friends, and then Rita has the best snappy comeback right away. Oh, really? Well, where's Vicky and where's Kenny, huh? And obviously, Rico totally oblivious to that because he did lose the two people closest to him. And now he's in fear of losing the third and his sister because what happens is Rita gets really upset and leaves the club, but gets into a car accident. And things just get worse when the doctor asks for Ken and not Rico. And Rico just loses it. And it's at that moment where Rico finally realizes what a screw up he had been. Ken decides to talk to Rico in a last ditch effort for reconciliation. And Rico finally realizes the error of his ways. He forgives Ken. He ends up supporting the romance, but this is all coming at a time when the one person he really needs the most is his girl, is Vicky. And the question is, it's going to be that time for the contest. Is she going to show up? And come on, guys, you've seen this movie. You know what's bound to happen. So yeah, he has some bridges that he has a major bridge he needs to fix before, or he can kiss the trip to Puerto Rico. Adios. Okay. All right. So how did this all come about? Well, as many know, Canon Films made this film. Okay, in 1984, they had hits with the breaking films. But by 1988, breakdancing was still around, but it wasn't getting the popularity it got a couple of years prior. It started to fade. That's what happened. Breakdancing started to fade a bit. But Latin music was on the rise on popularity, and one of the reasons is a boy band out of Puerto Rico called Menudo bursted onto the scene in the early 80s and became international superstars. What's funny here is Draco Rosa, who plays Rico, was a member of Menudo. So Canon decided to capitalize on the whole Latin music scene and they came up with this movie. And of course, they got a legend for the choreography, fresh off the iconic Dirty Dancing. Kenny Ortega was brought in as both an associate producer and the film's choreographer. And he got help from Miranda Garrison, who is a renowned dancer and choreographer herself. And she also plays Luna in this film. So we get to see her both doing what she does best behind the scenes, but we also get to see her as a very viable actress because guess what? She was also in Dirty Dancing. So if you remember that. But what the real thing with this film is, as I mentioned maybe a few weeks ago for Back to the Beach, there was a lot of cameos, like from the likes of Dick Dale, Ed Burns, these classic stars in Back to the Beach a few weeks ago. This film has a lot of cameos as well. We have the iconic Celia Cruz and Tito Puente, Mexican superstar Marcela, Puerto Rican musicians Willie Colon and Wilkins, and I gotta say, um, sending my condolences out to Willie Colon's family. I just found out as I watched the film again yesterday, because I did watch it yesterday again for this episode. I had just found out Willie Colon passed away in February. So My condolences out to his family. And then, of course, we have another superstar who passed away, I believe, last year or a year or two ago, Bobby Caldwell. He has a cameo in this film as well. And what's interesting with Wilkins, who's this Puerto Rican musician, there's a scene where we see Ken and Rita. This is when their relationship really starts to take off. And while a lot of the action takes place within the club, we actually have a musical number in the streets, and it's led by a group of guys, and it's led by Wilkins is singing a song called Margarita. That's also not just played in this one scene, it's actually playing during the end credits. It's the second song in the end credit roll. But I gotta say this, Draco Rosa is the double-edged sword of the film as a dancer who is popular and knows that he's popular, but when it comes to being the brother to his sister, he's a total a-hole. He acts like he's the dad because he's the man of the house, and I really don't get how his mother tolerates that behavior. Like she just yells at him when he almost hits her. He goes, "I didn't raise my boy to hit a woman. I don't know what you're doing. You never put your hands on a woman. I did not teach you that." This was like the early precursor to gentle parenting. And I'm sorry, but if I had a sister, and I don't, I have sisters-in-law, but if I had a sister and I acted the way Rico did, my mother would not take that crap. And because for those who don't know, but you could tell by my last name, I'm Puerto Rican American. All right. I'm a New Yorican, as J-Lo would Jennifer Lopez would say, because I'm originally from New York and I'm a Puerto Rican blood. But my mother would have grabbed her chancla and whooped my butt until it turned red. And I'm not joking. She would have done that if I ever did anything like that. And I'm not joking. But let's get to the music here. The music here is freaking amazing. And I'm someone who's over the past decade and a half and started embracing my Puerto Rican roots. And I know it sounds weird, but it's true. And because of that, the music here is phenomenal. It just makes you want to just start dancing, right? Even from the opening credit sequence, you just want to start dancing. And I'm serious, guys. If you don't know how to do the salsa, find someone who does. Because I swear to God, if you're watching this movie and it's just gonna make you want to get up and dance. Um, because this came out at a time when we started getting dance films, but these dance films were set in the 60s. We had The In Crowd and Hairspray. These are two iconic films, in my opinion. I mean, many may not know The In Crowd, but that is an iconic film, in my opinion, because it really brought the spirit of, and Hairspray. Those two movies brought the spirit of the 60s style dance, especially the dance party scene in 80s, to the 1980s. This film I feel like it brought Latin music as a whole to the 80s movie madness. So yeah. Um but I'm serious and I swear to God, I'm not joking here. I would love to know why Puerto Rico did not come up with the eponymous song as a anthem or a theme song because this is the song they play in the final scene. It's called Puerto Rico. It was written by Bobby Caldwell, Michael Sembello, yes, the guy who sang Maniac, Randy Waldman, and Wilkins. I swear to God, this should have been the Islands theme song. Hearing this song again, as I watched it yesterday, I asked myself, why was this not Puerto Rico's national anthem? I know Puerto Rico's a Commonwealth of the United States, but seriously, why was this not their own little national anthem? Because it's upbeat, it has that romantic like flavor, and it just makes you want to get up and dance. And as a New Yorican, this song is definitely my jam. So seriously, I mean, if it's just this is an amazing film. I'm not joking. I rewatching it yesterday for this episode, I just was like, holy cow, I am so glad I watched it again. I'm not joking. But anyway, it is time for some trivia. So let's get into the trivia of this film. So, as I mentioned before, Draco Rosa was a member of the Puerto Rican boy band Menudo. This film came after he graduated from the group. When you were 16 in the band Menudo, you graduated, which means you're out the band. But after this movie, he would continue success as both a singer and a songwriter. And one of the most popular songs that he wrote was former Menudo bandmate Ricky Martin's worldwide smash, Livin' La Vida Loca. And if you don't know that song, then you're living under a rock. But Rosa co-wrote Livin' La Vida Loca. So keep that in mind if you see this movie and you're saying, oh my God, this guy co-wrote Livin' La Vida Loca. And I mentioned earlier that art imitated life when it came to this film because Draco Rosa and Angela Alvarado, who plays Vicky in the film, they actually fell in love while making the film. And 2 years later, they got married and they had two sons. However, sadly, the marriage lasted almost 3 decades, but Draco Rosa filed for divorce and he moved from Los Angeles to Utuado, Puerto Rico. And not much more can be said about that. That's their own personal business. And as I mentioned right in the beginning of this episode, Rita may have been Rico's sister on screen, but in real life, Rita was Rico's sister-in-law because Angela Alvarado and Magali Alvarado, who is now goes by Magali Garcia, are real life sisters, but yet they play two totally different characters in this film that were not related. But yet they are connected to Rico. And speaking of connections, we have a George Lopez connection in this film. And when I say George Lopez, I mean his first TV series, The George Lopez Show, or it's just called George Lopez, that ran on ABC, and Sandra Bullock was a producer on it. So we have Chewy, played by Valente Rodriguez. He's one of Rico's buddies. He was known later for playing Ernie on The George Lopez Show, George's best buddy. But what many don't know was that one of the featured dancers in this film was Constance Marie, who played George Lopez's wife Angie on the show. She is in this movie as one of the featured dancers, but she's credited under her actual name of Constance Marie Lopez. And we also have a future soap opera star in the late Camar de los Reyes. He also was a featured dancer on this film. So that's something to keep in mind as well. But as much as some of this trivia is awesome and sounds pretty cool, like for all you geeks out there like me, I do have to end the trivia section on a very sad note, because Ken, Rodney Harvey, who played Ken, sadly passed away in 1998 of a drug overdose at the age of 30. So it was heartbreaking. And I kind of made fun of him earlier in this episode about him pumping away everything, but it was just I read about this yesterday. I was looking up, doing my research, and hearing that Rodney Harvey had passed in 1998, 10 years after this movie, is just pretty shocking. And, it's almost been almost 3 decades, so we gotta go with that. So finally, what did I think of Salsa? It's enjoyable. I mean, Rico, maybe somewhat, no, he's definitely a conceited jerk. He's the type of guy who had it all, and then he was in dire need of a redemption story, and we get that in the last like 10 minutes of the film, granted, but still. I mean, but there's always a theory I go by. If a character acts like a total douche or plays a villain so well, it just shows how good the actor can be. And seriously, Draco Rosa did deliver in that role. And there's some great romantic angles in the film, and the finale is phenomenal. It's like, I wouldn't say it's as good as Dirty Dancing, but with Kenny Ortega's choreography, it's almost up there. And I'm not joking when I say that. So, um, my final rating for Salsa, I'm giving it a B plus. It's a solid B plus, solid. You might not like Rico so much in this film at first, but it is about as the title indicates, it's about the music and it's about the dancing. That's what you got to focus on here. But if you are good, you want the story of the redeeming fact with a redeeming factor, yeah, then definitely check this movie out. And like I said, Salsa es una película muy buena. Very good film. And yes, I am my Spanish is not great, but I've done better. But in 2 weeks we are gonna go to war. But if you do want to see Salsa before I bring this up, prepare for a shock because this movie's not available on streaming whatsoever. Your best bet to try to track this movie down is to find a physical copy, which I always encourage. You get a chance to get a film on physical media, do it. Okay. And I would recommend you find Salsa. You could check eBay, check a collectible store. You might find this on a VHS tape, or I don't think it might have been on DVD at one point from MGM. But seriously, try if you like what I said and you're kind of curious about this film, track down a physical copy because like I said, right now it is not available on streaming. And it kind of sucks to hear that. Um, but you got another alternative. You could always try the Internet Archive. They post videos up there and you might be able to find Salsa on there as well. But like I said, Salsa is a great movie and I got this to say. The next episode is going to be a special double episode because we are going to war. And no, I'm not fighting anyone. That's what you're thinking. But as I mentioned, we were dancing in July, and there is a famous story that came in March 1990. We're going to be talking about the Lombardo War of 1990 in the next episode. And we're going to focus on the two films that were released on the very same day that focused on the very same dance. We're going to talk about Canon Films' Lambada and 21st Century's The Forbidden Dance. So that's going to be the next episode. Lambada and The Forbidden Dance in a special double episode. The Lombardo War of 1990. That's what we're going to be calling this. So seriously, guys, thanks for listening to this episode of Video Store Geek Podcast. I hope you enjoyed listening to this and listening to my thoughts on Salsa. And as always, I'm your video store geek, Albert Valentin. And don't forget to check out indieworldcinema.com for the latest in independent cinema and global cinema. I'm trying to get some new reviews out. Been watching some screeners between all this. And please check out indieworldcinema.com. On July 15th, we're going to have the Indie World Cinema Hall of Fame on YouTube at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific. So please check that out. There will be a live chat that I'll be involved in. So until then, be kind, rewind, and stay awesome. And we'll come back in 2 weeks. Take care.
Thank you for listening to the Video Store Geek podcast. Don't forget to check out worldfilmgeek.com for the latest reviews, interviews, and news in the world of indie and global cinema. And see you on the next episode of the podcast. Stay awesome, film geeks.